Time is 7 o'clock, and we will call the order of the City Council meeting for April 23rd, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Keller?
Here.
Mr. Browning?
Here.
Mr. Rohr?
Here.
Mr. Hellinger?
Here.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Here.
Mayor Riggle?
Here. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Titi, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please stand.
Let's look to the Lord in prayer. Father, just want to pause tonight at the beginning of this meeting and thank you so much for this beautiful city, the city of Delaware, for its historic nature and for the culture that we currently enjoy, a time of peace and prosperity and safety. And Father, we're just so thankful for that. We know, Father, that this environment that we have is a great gift from your hand. We also read in your word that not only have you raised up a church, but you've also raised up human leadership, human governments to deal in affairs of civil matters among men. And so, Father, I want to pause and thank you for each and every one of these men and women who so diligently and faithfully serve our fair city. Thank you for them. Father, tonight I pray that you would give them wisdom and discernment as they work together for the common good of this beautiful town. Father, I pray that you would bless them. I pray that tonight in this meeting that you would give them more things in common than differences of opinion and thought. But even in those differences of opinion and thought, that you would help things remain civil and help everyone to recognize the greater thing that we have here, which is this great city that you provided. Please bless them as they work for the good of Delaware. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for those kind words. Item 4 is the approval of the motion summary of the regular meeting of council held April 9th, 2018, as recorded and transcribed. What is
approval? Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Hellinger. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5 is the consent agenda. Elaine, if you'll please read this into the record.
Item A, acceptance of the motion summary of the Parking and Safety meeting held on February 19th, 2018, as recorded and transcribed. Item B, acceptance of the motion summary of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting held on February 20th, 2018, as recorded and transcribed. Item C, acceptance of the motion summary of the Sister City Advisory Board meeting held on January 9th, 2018, as recorded and transcribed. Item D, resolution number 18-24, resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a 2019 grant application to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Ohio Department of Transportation, and to enter into required agreements for the resurfacing of asphalt areas surrounding T-hangars A through F.
Thank you. What is the wish of council on the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Ms. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6 is time set aside for letters, petitions, or any public comments for anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward at this time? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is committee reports. Mr. Jones?
I have none this time, Mayor.
Mrs. Keller? I have none. Mr. Brown?
I had something I sent email on was the smoking policy in the parks. That's something we're going to be addressing. The commission or committee is looking generally at no smoking in the city's parks. And I was just looking for general remarks on that. One of the things they said 50 feet away from playing fields gets kind of dicey as far as where you're measuring from. One idea I had was maybe limit smoking or tobacco use to parking lots. So any feedback you'd like to give, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
I have no committee.
You have none? Mr. Hellinger?
Finance Committee will meet at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, provided my daughter doesn't go into labor before that, so we'll see.
Well, good luck.
Nothing.
Okay. Move on to item 8, which is a proclamation that I have. Would the shade tree like to come forward? Okay, I just don't know, how many of these do you have?
1 year for
1 year?
years.
Yes. That would be nice. Did you notice the flowering cherry blossom on your Nice touch. Whereas the purpose of Arbor Day is to promote and continue awareness of the value of trees and forests for the citizenry of Delaware. And whereas the conservation and restoration of our forests and all natural resources through proper management techniques have long been a desirable goal. And whereas the knowledge of the interest in conservation is valuable in the development of the character and future generations. Whereas the program of planting by youth and adults in the Delaware community may further promote the worthy practice of reforestation and community beautification. Whereas Delaware and the city increases property values, enhances the economic vitality of business areas, and beautifying our community. Now therefore, I, Carolyn K. Rizzo, the mayor of the city of Delaware, Ohio, do hereby designate Friday, April 27, 2018 as Arbor Day in the city of Delaware, and call upon the citizens of Delaware to observe this day to renew the progress that has been made in the conservation and restoration of our natural resources and to promote current efforts in community beautification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your hard work. Who wants this? Okay, you might as well just go. And then item B will be a presentation, so if you'd just like to come forward. Your annual report, Susan, you can come up too if you want. Okay.
We made a deal many years ago. She writes it.
Okay. You do have to give your name and address for the record, though.
Okay, my name is Dave Carey. I live at 251 Crystal Petal Drive here in Delaware.
Thank you.
All right. So I assume you all have a copy of the report and have read it thoroughly, made notes, all that fun stuff, right? Yeah. So a couple of highlights that I would like to give. I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course. We're proud to celebrate our 37th year as a Tree City. You can see the legacy of that program throughout the city, from northwest neighborhoods with the larger mature trees all the way through our newest neighborhoods who have curbside trees. And I've been in the city since 2003, and I have street trees, and they are now providing some nice shade and canopy. It's a beautiful thing to see, nice fall color. I really appreciate them. And I would also like to say that we appreciate the support that we get from council with our tree programs. And in particular, the support you give through a city arborist. Doug Richmond has been a real asset to the community, I believe. And he's been an asset to the commission as well, because once he got his feet under him and we understood each other, it has made our commission meetings way smoother. He kind of knows what we expect, and he comes prepared, and it's much better than it was a while ago. And a part of it that probably helps is that I'm not on commission chair anymore, so I don't rattle on, and I kind of host it. So anyway, but we love Doug, and Ted has been a real asset too, and we love his, what are we calling that? The Memorial Tree Program? Is that right? Yeah, we think that's a great idea. More trees, the better, right? The other thing that I'd like to point out to you all is that these trees pay for themselves. I know sometimes folks are concerned with costs and cost containment, but these are city trees. Even though they are sometimes some of the more expensive trees you might want to grow because of the location, I think the city's making the most use of the space that they have there, and these trees are paying us back, not only by heating cost relief and cooling cost relief directly to the homeowners. So the amount of money that the homeowners get back is greater than the amount of money that's directly put into this tree program. But on top of that, all the environmental benefits and the way they make the city look and feel, I think is a real asset. So thank you for your continued support. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you for all that you guys do. We appreciate it. Item C. Who's doing this?
This gentleman here.
So this is a Ford Tri-Mode Lion event hosted by the Experimental Aircraft. Okay. Well, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. So if you can give us your name and addresses for the record.
George Mellon, 8835 Feliz Lane, Powell.
Bernie Rifkin, 364 Whitaker Avenue South, Powell.
Bernie Griffin?
Rifkin.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to introduce Bernie. I'm the president of EAA Chapter 1600 here based at the Delaware Municipal Airport. We've had a presence there for quite some time. We have, during the summer months, we like to provide free airplane rides for the youth of the area, and we have a pancake breakfast. But we've got some exciting plans coming up for this summer with the Tri-Motor. So with that, Bernie Rifkin can take it.
Again, thank you for having us. George and I took office in the local chapter VA a year ago or so. And at the time, we were asked if we could put on an open house at the airport, like one was done several years ago. And we felt it might be a little soon for us to chew on anything that big. So put some plans in motion, and working with the national chapter, put an application in to get the Ford Tri-Motor to come and actually spend one of its tour stops in Delaware at our airport. There has been a Tri-Motor that's been coming to Columbus every year through Chapter 9. It usually comes out of OSU. They decided not to do it this year, and we were able to get one. This is not the one that comes to that one. This is one actually is based in Port Clinton. We're lucky enough in timing with everything and having Dr. Schottmer with the hangar that he has out there really sealed the deal for us, because this plane, as you can imagine, has a lot of value to it and needs to be housed every night inside a hangar where the elements can keep off it. We were able to get it, and we were able to get it for this year, August 9th through 12th. The plane will be arriving on the 8th from Port Clinton. On the 9th at 2 o'clock, there will be a flight for media. And after that, we'll be flying till 5 o'clock on that Thursday. Friday through Saturday, we are going to be flying from 9 to 5. And people will be allowed to purchase a flight, really getting a piece of history. And I say that because this plane has historic ties to Columbus. It was the first plane used in a cross-country flight, where it started as a train ride from New York to Columbus, and this plane had the first leg from Columbus to Wichita. Our chapter headquarters have been kind enough to print out some posters, and I would like to present one to you, Madam Mayor and City Manager, to hang proudly in your office.
Thank you.
As a remembrance of the event coming up.
Thank you.
Can you just explain to me and to, I guess, the audience, that the Tri-Motor obviously is a very unique.
It is a unique plane. It was first built by Ford for a burgeoning airline industry. This one actually flew for a company called TAT Airways, later becoming TWA.
Oh, wow.
So there is a lot of history to this.
What year is this plane?
This is a 1929.
1929.
Don't let the age scare you.
No, it doesn't at all. Not at all.
That's cool.
This has gone through complete refurbishment in recent years. I recently saw one of these planes for sale that had been refurbished out of California, and I think it was listing for about $2.5–3 million. So this plane goes through an awful lot. Our parent in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, he actually leases this aircraft from Port for a certain part of the year, and we're fortunate enough to get it.
So this will be the centerpiece of the fly-in?
This will be the centerpiece of the fly-in event. On Friday, the first day, we'll have just this. Thursday and Friday, rather, will be just this. And on the weekend, we're going to open it up to flying of other flying groups to come in and join us in the festivities. We're hoping to have self-contained food carts, or food trucks rather. We will have porta toilet services available as well. We're going to showcase the flight schools at the airport as well. We're hoping this will be a good community event.
That's great.
Good for the city, good for the community, and good for general aviation as well. A lot of our advertising so far has been through social media. When we first introduced that we were getting this, within the first 24 hours, we had 2,500 hits and over 50 shares. And then in a week, we had 7,900 hits on it, views of it. We're also going to be featuring this at our pancake breakfast, letting people know that it's coming. We're looking forward to it. I hope you are as well.
We absolutely are. And this is
And
really
please do come out.
exciting.
Pretty cool.
Thank
We're going to
you.
use the terminal as a terminal building.
Okay.
Yes. Everyone going on a flight will be pre-flighted in the terminal before they go out.
Okay. That's exciting.
Very exciting. Well, thank you very much for all your
look
efforts.
forward to it.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, item D is Delaware Parking Advocacy Committee update. Kelsey?
Members of council, Madam Mayor Riggle. Greetings, everybody. Is it working? Well, we have this. Oh, no. So see if it's. Well, my gifts are working. Yeah. My little video's not working, but that's all right. So good evening. As a lot of you up here may know, but maybe not everybody in the crowd, my name is Kelsey Scott. I am the Economic Development Specialist for the City of Delaware.
And your guest?
I'm Abby Trimble. I'm one of the Community Health Specialists at the Delaware General Health District. And we are two of the representatives that have been working very hard on the downtown implementation matrix brought to us by the Downtown Delaware parking study that we had conducted in 2017, early 2017, 2016. So Abby and I are two members of the Downtown Parking Advocacy Committee. And of the Downtown Parking Advocacy Committee, we are one of three. We are the pedestrian experience. The other two are signage and enforcement, which we talked about a little bit at the parking and safety meeting last week. So this is us. We're here to talk about parking and our accomplishments and downtown Delaware parking. This usually has a little bit of movement, a lot more scrutiny. It's a little bit cuter, but that's all right. We'll make do, no problem. But JK, it's going very well. I know that downtown parking seems a little bit scary for some folks, but so far so good. So who are we? Oh no, this is it. Pretty damn beautiful. There it is.
Are you picking her up on the microphones?
Thank you. I've never been told that people have problems hearing me. So we are Downtown Delaware's Parking Advocacy Committee. We are two of a large group here to present to you the accomplishments that the group has done. We have a couple members. I see one. Susie Bibler from Main Street is also a big part of it. The other people are Frank Barickman, owner of Restoration Brewworks. We have Mark Smiles from Greater Gouda, who also owns downtown buildings. And then Doug Price with Price Realty has also been an awesome member. We have a great group. It's just hard because they're so busy owning stuff. It's hard to get them here. So again, this is based on the Downtown Delaware implementation, downtown parking study that we conducted in 2016. And then I'm going to hand it off to Abby to start talking about what all that we've accomplished.
So one of the things the group decided to do was a walking audit. So we wanted to understand a little bit more maybe why folks aren't using some of the underutilized spots in downtown. And walking audits are good to kind of get out, see your environment. They're usually a little bit more in depth. We wanted to cover a large area, so we did a shortened walking audit. We did just perceived walkability, and we focused on nighttime. So we tried to get a good idea of maybe after dark, after a First Friday, or on the weekends. So we didn't do a full audit on every section of downtown. We can, but that would take a while. So we looked at the things that are there listed, and let's see. So we covered all that. Basically, and I'll get into the details here, but some of the other groups have actually utilized this walking audit. So the city engineers and also the design committee of Main Streets also looked at this. Okay, so some of the overall themes, we found that obviously the downtown areas where the brick-lined streets are and the lighted, the parts that have been brickscaped and that whole project were a little bit more inviting, and it felt more connected to downtown. So a lot of the streets that were outside of the downtown core had poor lighting. Sometimes it was due to a position of a light pole or lack of light coming from a building as well. So some businesses close after 5, and therefore, they might be more service businesses and they aren't open during the evening or weekends. Those then create a dark space or kind of, that darker area. So that was some of the things we noticed. We also did a walkability score. So after we did each section, and usually a section was like one segment of the street or a parking lot. So we looked at both, and we did a walkability score. So how walkable do you find this street segment or lot? So there were 2 groups, and we kind of divided and conquered. And so everybody in the group agreed on that score, and there were about 5 people in the group. So we got an average on a scale of 1 to 10, we got an average of 6.5. And some of the streets I'll point out, I don't have everything here, but couple scored a 3. Those streets were Spring Street between Franklin and Sandusky down here, and also the Sherwin-Williams lot, or back where Josie Posey's is. So that was one area that scored a low score due to lighting, maybe dark areas, uneven pavement. So those were kinds of things that we made notes of. A score of 5, Union Street over here south of Williams. So there's some very dark spots once you get kind of closer to the run down there. And also, there's not a lot of businesses, there's a lot of trees, which is great, but at night it's real dark. So that got a perceived score of 5. One did score a 10, and that was actually the city lot right out here. So we did get a 10. But we can share those scores, but I didn't want to go through all that tonight. Okay, so another project that we're working on is the Walk Your City campaign, and this was a recommendation made by the MKSK group. They suggested us take a look at it. On the right, you can see it's kind of a way to encourage walking. We kind of took a different twist on it. So what we're working on, and you can see one of the signs here that are in the works. Yeah, so those are one of our signs. We decided to take a twist and try to encourage people to think differently about where they're parking. So, looking at the underutilized spots and areas, we went to all those places and identified poles and where we could put this signage. So we came up with cute little sayings and tried to make it fun and relatable to downtown. So this will be coming soon. And we'll have like a media campaign with it, and just to kind of say, hey, it's not too far to walk to your downtown areas from this spot right here. And so that'll include like Facebook and stuff. So that'll be the next step. These are at the printer right now, so we should be getting them soon. And up in downtown, we have 16 signs total, just to encourage walking. And I can say, I think the furthest walk is only like 5 minutes, so which is very encouraging. So it's really not far to walk from from your underutilized spots in downtown.
And
So
is the destination always freshly brewed coffee?
no, that's
Or
just
there's
one.
Other like shops or?
Yeah, so we didn't identify any specific shop, but we kind of said, to antiques or to breweries or, burgers and fries, or kind of kept it, we didn't want to pick out
Okay.
one shop. So they're kind of like that, yeah.
Okay.
So that's all I have for that.
And then another big project that we just completed in the last couple months was our Branded Lot campaign. And we brought in Ted Miller, the guy that's dressed just like me in the back, to help us out in terms of planning. But so why did we do this? What's the proposition? We keep hearing from a lot of people that, they don't know where to park. They don't know if it's okay to park somewhere. So what we decided to come up with is, well, what if we had even more in-your-face things beyond the public parking signage that we have? So things that Ted kind of helped us out with was he made this whole concept, which is very nice. But so we came up with, what if we restriped all of the lots, which I think is kind of in the works. We'd like to do that anyway. That doesn't hurt at all. But we were thinking, what if we put the City of Delaware logo at all of the entrances and exits of the public parking lots, as well as maybe putting a marker at the front of each of the lot to help really identify really help pull people in and be like, oh, okay, obviously I can park here because it has the city branding all over it. Another big thing was, what if we painted, especially we focus on the Franklin Street lot in particular because it can be really confusing with the public and private parking within it. So we really evaluated that, and we did see that there was a lot of private parking within this public lot. So what if we had paint that said, do not park beyond this line, the private parking, or just kind of playing with the language on that. How can we make it so people know for sure that they should not park here, but they can park here? So, and I already answered why we did that. So we created an event. This was sponsored by the General Health District. And also I want to give another shout out to the Delaware General Health District, because they sponsored the Walk Your City campaign that Abby touched on too. So really exciting stuff from the health district. But so we collected makeshift materials to get in-person surveys as well as the surveys beforehand. So I sent out a Facebook campaign, Facebook post. I only needed to do one because people love answering questions about parking. So we gave a survey online, and then the health district sponsored a mock-up event is what we called it. So we gathered makeshift materials like yoga walls that we had here. It's kind of hard to see up here, but we have private parking, do not park beyond this line, it's chalked right here. We also chalked the Delaware logo to the best of my artistic abilities on the sidewalks. And we collected about 30 surveys in the very cold February or March day. People were really excited to talk to us for the most part once we told them that we were talking about parking. So here are some of the quotes that I think really represent a lot of the feedback that we got. Again, it might be a little bit hard to read, but I can read through them. So this one up here says, incentivize private lot holders to allow public parking during the evening and weekend hours. Signs along the road would be helpful. More signs at the entrance and exits of parking lots clearly mark where people can and cannot park within these lots. I don't think the problem is identification. I mean, more visible signs always help, but our issue is lack of parking. Better signage explaining hours, free parking versus paid, and not red balls. It's a short downtown, not a Target store. People did not like the Walmart at all, which, okay, all right, we got left here. But probably the biggest takeaway, and it was kind of talked about here, was that the people that we surveyed online, and we really could tell through surveying in person, is that, yeah, people like the idea of branding, but they'd much rather have clear signage, and they don't think it's necessary, is really what we got from all of that. So that was a really big finding for us. We thought, well, what could that hurt? But it was good feedback all in all. So Kind of leading into that, we're going to talk about a little bit about a few things that staff are working on. So right now, as one person suggested, we're trying to come up with an agreement to bring, to have lot owners open up their private parking lots after their business hours and on weekends. So a few things that we're touching on: uses, time and days, making sure that the city would be liable if anything were to happen, so that people feel more comfortable opening those parking places up for the public. And then on the meter front, we're looking to put an enforcement system on our meters so that we can pay our meter fees with cards. So the people that don't carry cash, which is me, can finally not sweat not having the few quarters on them. So here's a quick timetable. We already have a request for a proposal out. May 8th, is the deadline for the receipts for those proposals. May 9th, we're gonna review them, and by the week of May 14th, we're gonna make that selection. We want to deliver this to our downtown patrons as soon as we can, but we want to make sure that we do it right. So overall, our final recommendations.
Yeah, so basically the theme of the walking audit was to continue the Brickscape. We felt that it was, you just felt like you had a sense of connection to downtown. Like when you're in that area with the Brickscape and the, where the lights are and everything, you just felt safe, you felt like you were connected. So taking that out further into the, underutilized areas, I think would give a sense of connection and that safety, especially at nighttime. These are some of the streets that we thought that would be a good recommendation. So in some areas, another suggestion, overgrown vegetation, uneven pavements or sidewalks. We didn't find a whole lot of that, but in places where we did, it really mattered because you had that, you had poor lighting, like all these factors together just gave you, a sense of being unsafe. So that was the first two.
And then, so the other two that we really want to focus on is introduce more main finding from the main streets or parking lots. We had a good recommendation that we thought was a good idea when you're driving on the road and maybe having public parking lot signs pointing where the street lights are. So in addition to the great signage that we already have. So when you're stopped at a light, you can see, okay, I need to turn here if I need to park. And then that can be that connector. Focus on clear signage, not more identification for public lots. Again, that was a huge takeaway for us in that branded lot project. And I think a big one was the signage to differentiate public and private parking lots, just so people are very comfortable. That was a big thing, was like, I don't feel very comfortable leaving my car here, and that always makes me unsure, and then I'm kind of uneasy being downtown. And we don't want that. So those are our final recommendations. And this was such a hit last time I had this on, so I'm hoping that people like that one too. But thank you so much for your time. We are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Thank you for all your hard work. We really appreciate it.
I could not have done it without this group. They do such a great job, and I can't thank them enough. I got really lucky with my group.
And I would say, just from where we were 2 years ago, from where we are today, we've made a lot of progress in terms of just better identification, these recommendations, and yeah, my appreciation to all of your work and the work of the committee and Jackie and others.
Actually, I was
I
just
know
going to
you're
take
part
a
of
moment, even though it's kind of assigned to me, that Kelsey really has become the face of parking. Kind of a tough job, but she's doing a great job. We're moving right along and expect great things in the near future. I can promise that.
A lot of cool things to come.
Like a sign down here on the city parking lot?
Yes.
Okay, working on that one for me, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we are. And I'll stick around until intermission, so if anybody in the audience has any questions, please feel free to let me know. I know people like talking about projects. Thanks, guys.
Okay, we need to shut the computers down because they're having trouble right now, so we're going to take a short, quick break.
Yeah. Blue Jacket score update?
No, the computers.
You'll have to look on your phone.
It's good, just real quick, right? We're not leaving. They can't do anything, so. It won't take long. Yeah.
It
that's
unfortunately started an upgrade, a shutdown in the middle of Mr. Rifkin's and Mr. Mellon's presentation.
So you two are welcome to stay, but you certainly don't have to, unless you really want to learn about all this. Thank you so much.
Two minutes, right? Are we taking a break?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minute
I'll
break.
set their computer up.
It didn't even let us speak.
Oh, it's down there.
Chris has got it.
Be strong. But I wouldn't call it.
I know horses.
Exactly.
Not-
Same thing. I've got driving.
He's just, he's starting to keep saying that.
I'm sure it's hard to drive.
Oh, cool. Okay. We're downtown.
Good, how are you?
Here's when,
They were here shooting truck, which is like.
I think it's all the mirror.
Right now, Tracy, a couple years ago, they were spearheaded, this is all been, I think it's us was started, and I don't think it ever got mixed up. He talked.
We're ready. Good. I'm excited.
I'll get back to you. They shot here. I don't think I got it.
Over big ceremony, 7:30 then.
It was about.
You would know.
We're fun marriage.
We're good. Okay. We'll, We'll bring this back to, the meeting back to order, and Elaine, if you will read 9, 10, 11, and 12. Sorry.
Sorry about that earlier.
That's okay.
Ordinance number 18-32, an ordinance for Zaremba Group LLC for approval of a rezoning amendment from B3 Community Business District to B3 PMU, Community Business District with a planned mixed-use overlay district to allow a 9.7 acre land addition, parcels 11, 12, and a portion of parcel 5 to the Glenwood Commons Shopping Center located on the south side of US 3637 between Mill Run Crossing and Glen Road. Ordinance number 18-33, an ordinance for Zaremba Group LLC for approval of a conditional use permit request allowing the placement of a PMU planned mixed-use overlay district to be established on a 9.7 acre land addition, parcels 11, 12, and a portion of parcel 5 to the Glenwood Commons Shopping Center located on the south side of US 3637 between Mill Run Crossing and Glen Road on property zone B3 Community Business District. Ordinance number 18-34, an ordinance for Zaremba Group LLC for approval of an amended preliminary development plan for Glenwood Commons Shopping Center on approximately 82.9 acres located on the south side of US 3637 between Mill Run Crossing and Glen Road on property zone B3 PMU, Community Business District with a planned mixed-use overlay district. And ordinance number 18-35, an ordinance for Zaremba Group LLC for approval of a comprehensive plan amendment on the future land use plan map from commercial to mixed use on a 9.7 acre land addition, parcels 11, 12, and a portion of parcel 5 to the Glenwood Commons Shopping Center located on the south side of US 3637 between Mill Run Crossing and Glen Road on property zone B3 PMU, Community Business District with a planned mixed use overlay district.
Lance?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Give you some history on this. On April 4th, Planning Commission approved all 4 of these cases 6-0 with the conditions in each ordinance. Give you some history. Back in 2006, City Council approved the Glenwood Commons and what now is the Quill Pass development. The Glenwood Commons is in the outlined in green here, and today's Quill Pass is outlined in yellow. Now they're proposing a 9.7 acre land addition, which is the northwest east corner, and that's in the blue. It's going to be a portion of 3 lots. This really cleans up that corner. The applicant owns it from a zoning perspective to be consistent with the current Glenwood Commons Shopping Center. Will have the same zoning now, the same development requirements. Obviously, all the infrastructure is in the roads and the water and utility lines, so there's going to be no impacts to the sites. It's just what's going to be 3 outlots just waiting to get developed, hopefully in the near future. Final development plans would be required for all future outlots as they come forward. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Chris, you got a question?
No, I'm just checking that.
No. Quentin. Okay, this is, would the applicant like to come forward? How are you this evening?
I'm doing okay. It's actually sunny and warm in Cleveland, and I drove down here and it's cold and rainy.
You could have brought it with you.
I know.
You'll give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Christopher Hersner. I am with the Zaremba Group at 14600 Detroit Avenue, Suite 1500 in Lakewood, Ohio.
Thank you.
Basically, Lance was correct. You know, this property is out parcels that we always intended on developing. And it's now just cleaning up the maps, the current zoning, and making it all consistent.
Okay. All right. Any questions for the applicant?
While you're here, what are some of the biggest challenges you're having right now with marketing the property? Because I know there's obviously some real history to this in terms of when it was approved and when you got under construction, the downturn. What is your strategy, the company's strategy for filling out that acreage, so much of it?
Currently, I'm more of a development side. I'm not necessarily a leasing side, but I do know from their current struggles and what I hear, you know, a lot of the current way people shop is the biggest downturn, and people building new stores and expanding. Strangely enough, we have had some increased interest in the out parcels. And I know of 4 of them are kind of teetering on interest. So I'm hoping that, some of those will come to light, and I think maybe when one or two of them start up, it develops and shows interest and hopefully permits additional people feel more confident in the location and being able to build upon the lots.
And the Home Depot, what's the status of that parcel?
That I cannot answer. I know the Home Depot still owns the parcel, and we continue to try to talk with them. But that's as much as I know myself.
Okay.
And I've had some of the storefront people talk to me because Hibbett left and Famous Footwear, and they went to Tanger once they opened, and they're still sitting there empty. They're sandwiched between two empty buildings, and they're just very frustrated. So
Very frustrating for us
offer
as
some
well.
incentives to try to get some stuff in there, or what they can do. Not you yourself, but I just keep hearing that. I was in Verizon yesterday. They're frustrated. They just want to see more foot traffic out there. I said, well, you're getting a Mattress Smart right next door now. That didn't excite them too much yet. Or Mattress for whatever it is. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll open this up for public hearing then. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, you can do it.
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 1832.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I move for the approval of ordinance 1832.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries.
Move for suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 1833.
Yeah.
I have to open up each one individually.
okay.
So item 10, I'll open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 1833.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I move for the approval of ordinance 1833.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Ms. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 1834.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for the approval of ordinance 1834.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes. And item 12 is a public hearing on ordinance number 18-35. Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 1835.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for the approval of ordinance 1835.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. Item 13 is second reading of ordinance number 18-30. And if you want to read 13 and 14 together.
Ordinance number 18-30, an ordinance for Pulte Homes approving a final development plan for the communities at Glen Ross, Section 15 for 52 single-family lots on 23.835 acres on property zoned R2 PMU, one family residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district, and located south of Cheshire Road and east of Winterbourne Drive on Marble Slab Road, Winter Shadow Loop, and Bald Eagle Drive. In ordinance number 18-31, an ordinance for Pulte Homes approving a final subdivision plat for the communities at Glen Ross, Section 15 for 52 single-family lots on 23.835 acres on property zoned R2 PMU, one family residential district with a planned mixed-use overlay district, and located south of Cheshire Road and east of Winterbourne Drive on Marble Slab Road, Winter Shadow Loop, and Bald Eagle Drive.
Can we change the name of these roads? Good grief.
Yeah, give you some history here. Planning Commission approved this on April 4th. Both of these cases, 6-0 with 12 conditions. This site's located on the south side of Cheshire, just west of the railroad tracks. Back in 2016, City Council approved the rezoning, amended preliminary plan, and amended preliminary subdivision plat for sections 11 through 22, and that's what's on the exhibit here. Last year, we approved final subdivision plats for sections 11 and 12, and that's in yellow. They're actually building those now and actually selling houses. Sections 15 is in the green on this plan, just across from 11. This is the site plan itself. Access to this plan will be south of the roundabout on Winterbourne Drive, east into the looped section here. There would be an emergency access drive just east of the retention pond on the corner up there. Typical with Glen Ross, community Glen Ross development, the minimum lot size will be about 8,450 square feet. Minimum house size for a single story would be 1,600 square foot and 1,800 square foot for a 2-story. Building materials will be 40% natural materials on front elevation and dimensional shingles. From a landscaping perspective, you'd have typical street trees. You'd have mounding along Cheshire Road and Winterbourne Drive to match what's existing out there. And also mounding adjacent to the railroad tracks would be required, similar to north of Cheshire Road. It would be about a 10-foot high mound in that area. There's about 7 acres of passive park in this section along Cheshire Road and Winterbourne Drive. Just want to remind you, there's 17 acres across the street of active park when they built the pool and the shelter house and the ball fields. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for
Lance, is that the only entrance and exit that right there?
Winterbourne Drive, yes, Winterbourne Drive, that's why we're requiring the emergency access just east of until this gets built out. I understand. And we get around that, emergency access can be eliminated.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Take it to the reading, or?
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 18-30. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
No.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move the approval of ordinance 18-30. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Schaefer. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries.
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 18-31. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
No.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I move for the approval of ordinance 18-31. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Schaefer. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 15 is the second reading of ordinance number 18-25. Joanne, if you'll please read this into the record.
Ordinance number 18-25, an ordinance supplementing the 2018 appropriations ordinance to provide additional funding for the airport strategic business plan.
Mr. Farino.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
I think we've talked about the need for a strategic airport plan for some time. We sent out RFPs and we're getting ready to negotiate with CMT, a fairly local expert in airport strategic planning and business planning. At the time we approved the budget, we had $20,000 item in there, and Tom and I talked actually, should we try to increase that and guess what the amount would be? We said, let's just hold off and get the RFPs and see what the amount is. The cost being proposed is $45,000. It will be less than that because some of the work has actually already been done under a separate contract, but we're asking for the supplemental appropriation up to $45,000 to give us the room to negotiate the final contract and move forward with a strategic business plan. I think you have a copy of that planning document in here. I'll just talk about the highlights of it. Really, we need an expert to help us with looking at evaluating our T-hanger rates, our ramp rates, and a number of other rates that could apply at the airport. Our T-hangers are full and have been full, very popular. So when you are full, you got to question, are your rates at an appropriate rate? Could we be charging more? Could we get to the point where the airport is more self-sufficient and doesn't require the support general fund in order to keep it balanced? Now, just reading some federal regulation here, one of the provisions in there is that it is the duty upon the owner responsible to the airport to maintain a rate structure that fully supports that airport without having to supplement it. So one of the points of going through the business plan is to have someone who is very adept at this. And CMT has looked at airports, not just regionally in this area, but nationally. And a number of small airports similar in size to Delaware is what the target will be. Look at how they set up rates. Another big component of it is also to look at what is our strategy for next expansion, because we have virtually 100 T-hangers and we're full. Should we build another 100 T-hangers? Is that a wise move? Should we respond more to some of the pressures for jet hangar space and consider building jet hangar space? The point of having the experts on board is to help give us the guidance of what's trending nationally, what's the best interest of the city, to help guide our plans as we go forward. We do have an airport infrastructure plan, but that's really at the FAA level. It defines mostly taxiway, runway lengths, ramp areas. It doesn't really dictate what's best for the community in terms of expanding our airport operation and making it self-sufficient through the fees and charges we have. The last part of the work is to take a look at all of our current agreements out there, make recommendations regarding our ground lease rates, our rental rates. And so when someone comes in interested in wanting to build something there, we can be very responsive and say, if you need, a half acre or 3/4 of an acre, this is our ground lease rate, and these are some of the other rates we'll be charging to access the airport. So we want to be able to move forward, but it's necessary at least to have the supplemental appropriation approved first. So city manager and I can enter into final negotiations and get this work underway. Once we do, it's a fairly short time frame actually to turn it around. Within 4 to 6 months. We should actually be reporting back this year with the results of that strategic planning and be able to tell you at least what some of the planning elements are for the airport into the future. Can you answer any more questions regarding this?
I just have one, Bill. I'm in support of this project, but I'm just curious. We put $20,000 in the budget. Did this end up just kind of higher than we thought it was going to be, or did you make some changes?
We did expand the scope. We weren't really sure what the cost would be, so we had seed money in there for 2 years. But it's really, these aren't the kind of things that most municipalities even deal with in terms of owning an airport, let alone doing a strategic plan for it. So in all honesty, we didn't really know what it would cost. It was probably a little higher than we thought, hoped it would be. But after reviewing our scope and talking with the consultant, we feel that there's going to be really good value out of this.
I know the airport has, some of the members on the commission have reached out to me on frustration. There's not much going on. I realize you did have a meeting last week, but are they aware of all this?
Yes. Yeah, we've been in contact with them through the entire RFP process, invited their comments as we drafted the RFP, invited their comments as they were provided the folks who submitted. We didn't get much comment back from any of the members, but we are trying to involve them heavily, and our goal is to invite the airport commission to assign a member of the commission to sit in all the meetings with the consultant as well. So we're trying to improve that relationship with the committee to have more involvement, the commission, with these ongoing airport activities.
Well, that's one of my frustrations. I mean, these are citizens that have come forward and want to sit on these boards. And every time I turn around, the meetings get canceled. BZA has met twice in 2 years. And I feel their frustration. They want to help, but they don't know how to help.
Right.
And the gentleman from the airport reached out to me. He's like, I may as well quit because we don't meet. So as long as we keep them involved, I appreciate all the hours that they put in also. So.
Right, and it's a good point. Once the runway project was completed, there's really not, we like to say it's kind of a hobbyist airport. If you can afford to be a pilot and own an aircraft, you can be there. We want to turn that into, but it costs us money to continue to operate an airport that way. We'd like to be able to see what the viability of the airport is to not only pay for itself, but actually to help the community become more productive. That will certainly involve the commission in terms of establishing policies, changing some of our rules and regulations, and getting their buy-in as representatives of the community on this commission to help guide us. So I would foresee that my goal is to have a lot more involvement with them.
Okay.
And I just related to that, Mayor. I attended their meeting last Wednesday night and reinforced what Bill's just indicated, and that is that they're going to play an important role for the next probably 12 to 18 months in this process, and then going forward after that. So they will be meeting, I think, a little more frequently than quarterly, and as Bill indicated, we will involve them in the actual the work of the consultant. So
this is a second reading. It's not imperative that we have it approved tonight, but if you're so inclined, we could start negotiations.
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 18-25.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Keller, a second by Mr. Schaefer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I move for approval of 18-25.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Keller, a second by Mr. Schaefer. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 16 is the second reading of ordinance number 18-26. Elaine, if you'll please read this into the record.
Ordinance number 18-26, an ordinance supplementing the 2018 appropriations ordinance to provide funding for the renovation of the City Hall Annex and declaring an emergency. Emergency clause, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary to provide for the public peace, safety, health, and welfare of the city, and to permit the design build team for the City Hall Annex to begin their construction operations at the earliest opportunity, and as such will be in full force and effect immediately upon its passage.
Thank you. Mrs. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor Riggle. This is the second reading of this agenda item. We did go back and just made one increase. It was my understanding that when I reviewed the contract, that the renovation to the roof at the City Hall Annex was included in the 11856. I was mistaken. It through one of the iterations it was left out. So we went through, tightened up some of our numbers for the additional things that the city would like to have done at the City Hall Annex. And I was able to bring it to I originally had asked for $550,000. The roof is $115,000, but we were able to get better numbers on these other items. So the net increase just makes it $615,000. As you will see that we have the 1185686 that the city has already committed to COHATCH of doing as much as possible to make that a vanilla box. The city would like to make the second floor windows match the first floor. We would also like to have the second floor mechanicals, HVAC, electrical, plumbing also be updated on the second floor. We want to clean the entire exterior of the City Hall Annex and do some tuck pointing only where it's critical. We're not going to tuck point the whole building. That can be quite expensive. We would like to do the design and construction of the connector bridge between City Hall and City Hall Annex. I've included a contingency in there of $50,000, and then of course we have the roof of $115,000. So this is technically the second reading of this ordinance, excuse me. And we have what we believe is an excellent contractor, and he is biting at the bit to get started. His hope is to have Cohatch open, and if council approves these other second floor improvements, everything done by September 1st. That's an incredibly aggressive schedule. He will be working nights and weekends, and his contractors and his subcontractors know that as well. So they literally want to know what time tomorrow morning the contract can be ready.
When construction starts, does it affect City Hall parking here at all?
No, we're gonna have construction. They're gonna have to find off-site parking. We're not gonna provide that parking for them. They will not be allowed to park in this area, nor will they be allowed to park any more than 5 vehicles that are on the east side of the City Hall Annex.
And they're not going to stage any
No.
construction materials?
No, they will not be allowed to do that, no.
You mentioned Finance Committee Wednesday night we were looking at.
Okay, sure. The Finance Committee meeting Wednesday night?
Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon. We are working with Red Architects, which is the same architect that is doing the design and for Cohatch on the first floor and basement of the City Hall Annex. And they are working on updating construction costs to finish out the second floor, plus construction costs for the connector bridge. I don't know if you've heard that steel prices have taken a big jump in the last month or so. So they're working on revising prices for the connector bridge, but they're also going to be designing the connector bridge. So this ordinance already takes into consideration the cost of the connector bridge. We feel pretty comfortable with that number. But what I've asked Red to do is what would it cost to finish out the second floor and actually be able to move offices over there? And that's what they're working on and diligently working on. And I hope to have that information before the meeting on Wednesday afternoon for Finance Committee's consideration.
Okay, any questions? What is the wish of council?
I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 18-26.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for approval of the emergency clause on ordinance 18-26.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for the approval of ordinance 18-26.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. We will not disappoint.
Item 17 is consideration of ordinance number 18-36.
Ordinance number 18-36, an ordinance approving a community reinvestment area agreement and school compensation agreement with Delaware Community Spaces LLC doing business as Cohatch, Delaware City Schools, Delaware Area Career Center, and the City of Delaware for investment in real property improvements on a building at 18 East William Street and declaring an emergency. Emergency clause that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary to provide for the public peace, safety, health, and welfare of the city, and is necessary to finalize negotiations so that construction may begin without the applicant risking the loss of the incentive, and as such will be in full force and effect immediately upon its passage.
Thank you. Mr. Holman?
Mr. Hughes was not able to be here tonight. I can explain this. It's a Community Reinvestment Act tax abatement for this piece of property. It's a little unique because we own the building, and it's currently in a non-taxable state. In the event that it becomes taxable because there's private activity going on and it's non-municipal, there is the chance that it's going to be taxed, and we're asking that we want to preserve the right to have a tax abatement for the benefit of Cohatch. So in as much as they're starting work tomorrow, Sean asked that this be placed on the agenda tonight for consideration by council. There is a chance that it might have to be amended at some point. We've got to check with the state in terms of what their requirements are going to be, but at this point we'd like council's action on it. But it is a little unusual because it's a municipal building which was in a taxable state. It is then a non-taxable state. So I'd mentioned this earlier to Chris. It's a little unusual, but
So if the state decides that it's taxable, I'm assuming it'll be half the building since the upper half is still municipal.
yes. Well, it'd probably be 2/3. There's a basement. Yeah, what we would do is demise the space on the first floor in the basement as a private use, and the building on the second floor of the building would be a public use, the municipal use, and that would have to be apportioned as such. But it's going to be just working with the State Department of Taxation on it. There's going to be a lot of we'd have to work with them closely on that, as well as the State Department of Development.
That'll be interesting how they do that or not.
Yeah, it's unusual because we own the building. Typically, we get a CRA request from an owner of a property. In this case, we own it, but it's tax exempt. So, but we don't want to do is risk their ability to go forward with their improvements that they want to get started on. So it's kind of a, we're asking council to act on it. So, Chris, did you want to mention anything? I know you had Chris Ballard.
Yeah. No, Tom. I mean, that pretty much summed it up. I don't see any risk in proceeding with the CRA at this point. If we need to revisit it eventually, we can certainly do that. But.
Okay.
Does this happen very often, Chris? I mean, this is a little unique, I think.
Yeah, I haven't researched specifically that issue, so I couldn't tell you. But it, at least from my perspective, appears to be a unique situation. But I'm sure it's probably occurred at some point before in the state of Ohio.
Thank you.
So.
All right, so what is the wish of council? Or do you have any other questions first before we move forward? So what is the wish of council on ordinance number 18-36?
I'll move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on ordinance 18-36. Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
This will approve the emergency clause as ordinance 1836. Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for the approval of ordinance 1836. Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. And item 18 is consideration of ordinance number 18-37. Lane, if you'll please read this into the record.
Ordinance number 18-37, an ordinance accepting the annexation of 89.618 plus or minus acres of land more or less. Description and map are attached hereto as exhibits A and B for the annexation known as the Wilgus annexation by Andrew P. Wecker, agent for the petitioners.
Thank you. Lance?
Yeah, the subject site's located at the western terminus of Sawmill Parkway, just south of the airport. It's 89 acres. This is the final step of the annexation process that was initiated in January of this year. Apparently, the applicant's going to submit the rezoning and development plan for this site, which would be industrial. And they want to synchronize the approval of this annexation into zoning, which would be June 11th for the final reading of this and the zoning. That's the plan today. Essentially, staff recommends approval of this annexation with the 6 conditions outlined in the ordinance, which would be addressed during the zoning approval process for the preliminary plan and potentially preliminary plat. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
we would like to, if possible, we're looking at a tentative work session on the 21st of May as a follow-up to our last meeting that we had regarding economic development. We were considering, I've mentioned it to that we might want to consider spending a little bit of time about the development of this parcel. This goes back to Councilman Jones' questions earlier in the year about the cost of development, where our priorities are going to be. This is a good example of, I think, a piece of property. We've spent a lot of time doing due diligence on cost of utilities, just the general marketability of that piece of property. So I think that's just something I mentioned that now. There's a possibility that we might want to roll up our sleeves and at least evaluate that in connection with the ultimate acceptance of that annexation. You can see that that property is only at the western end of it. You're almost the southern end of it. You're almost at Section Line Road. It's a considerable frontage, that piece of property. So, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there tonight. And I know that Mr. Brickner, who's been working with the Wilgus family, is here tonight. I don't know, Jack, did you want to maybe come forward and just kind of explain your role in the process?
Good evening, thank you. Jack Brickner, 2715 Brighton Drive, Liberty Township. Yeah, Andy's been the legal agent for the property on this, and I've been acting pretty much with staff from the development side and the zoning side, and I will say that's been going very well. Not to pat them on the back too much, but with Lance and Dave and Sean and stuff, it has gone real well, and good input back from them on things. What we're planning on doing is we have been working with staff on users, use descriptions for the property. And it's been a takeoff. The text and the users are kind of been a takeoff of Innovation Drive, the subdivision to beside it there. So that's what kind of we've focused on. We were looking at having a draft of the zoning application into staff tomorrow, based on your reading of this tonight. So that kind of brings you up to date on thing, and we're hoping to try to coincide the rezoning of the property and the adoption of the ordinance going into June. Whether that exactly falls into place, we're not sure, but at least be in a position where we have good feedback from the zoning boards and yourselves maybe on the property. But as Mr. Holman mentioned, there's a lot of challenges to the property from a development standpoint. It's got a lot of frontage, a lot of utility extensions that would have to happen. And a large significant issue is stormwater, not only from this property, but from the surrounding area. So it is a lot to discuss on the property. So thank you. I'll entertain any questions from the board.
All right.
So again, this
Thank you.
First reading.
Yeah, it's just the first reading, but thank you very much for
Welcome.
sitting through it. Okay. Move on to finance reports.
Thank you, Mayor. The report through March 31st was included in your packet. Nothing really to add. Our development revenues associated with permits and such and impact fees are up quite a bit. We've seen a lot of houses being built. Our engineering fees are down, but we had a banner year last year, so I don't know what that means moving forward, whether there's going to be even more development occurring. But other than that, everything appears to be pretty much in line budget-wise. Entertain any questions you may have.
Collected lots of taxes.
Taxes, a little below what we had projected as far as an increase. We'll see. April's always a big month, and have a little bit better sense once we get everything in for April.
Okay. Any questions for Dave?
Is there a reason we projected, I think we had a 5.3% projected increase in income taxes versus I think historically it was 3.5. Was there a reason, just a better economy, or do you recall?
Yeah, I generally kind of look at the trend, and it's a little difficult to, when we put the budget together, don't have year-end figures, and sometimes there can be some changes. I think the tail end of last year wasn't quite, fourth quarter was, collections weren't as much, so it made that percentage projected increase a little higher, but we'd shoot for about 4%, 4.5%, so what we perhaps expect But like I said, it ended up being more because the 2017 amount wasn't as high, and we were basing the projection on a smaller percentage. I'd go back, I'll take a look and see what going into the budget when we presented it in November, what the projected increase was going to be. But normally it's probably about 4% or so.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dean? Next, city manager's report.
I had sent around a couple of weeks ago in my biweekly report the pictures of our gateway signage, and I think I got pretty much positive feedback that it was okay if we take that signage down. It just kind of clutters up coming into the city. Ultimately, it will be replaced with our branded signage. We don't have the funding for that right now, but in the meantime, these signs are just, as I say, clutter and old, and we will obviously, to the extent that there's a sports team on there, we'll notify them of that. Ultimately, it'd be nice to find a home for those signs, whether it's the state lacrosse championship or Wesleyan's soccer championship or whatever it is. So I'll be working with Dave on that. I have reached out to Sims Recycling regarding their notification that they're going to stop participating in the city's recycling program effective next year. We have a meeting set up probably in the next 2 weeks with the officials from Marion and the city and Sims to talk about what they're looking at in order to remain viable financially for the city's program. So I'll keep you posted on that. We talked about the tentative work session on the 21st, and I left at your desk tonight. The mayor had asked if this is what Kent had, Vice Mayor Schaefer had sent out a couple of weeks ago, actually with the last work session, and there might be some discussion about that. Please make your neighbors and your homeowners association and others that you run into aware of Access Delaware. There's an online survey for Access Delaware, as well as Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. If you're interested, have people that are interested in being on the steering committee, please have them just go online and fill out the form, and they'll hear back from the city. I know Vice Mayor Schaefer and Mayor Riggle earlier today mentioned Airbnb. We need to follow up with our staff to find out what the options are with respect to the regulation of that, and that's something that I'll be following up with Darren and his staff about. There is an annexation that will be coming forward. It's a small annexation on Bowtown Road. Lance, did you want to?
It's on 521. There's
521.
There's 3 existing lots, they're residential lots today in the county. A builder bought those, wants to annex those into the city and build 3 houses on that lot and access city utilities for that. I think his plan is to, if approved, start construction in fall this year.
So that'll be coming forward at some point. The applicant or the attorney working for the applicant may be reaching out to council in that regard.
Yeah, Andrew Wecker's the attorney.
Andrew Wecker, the same one who did the Wilgus annexation. Right. Recreation Levy Subcommittee, that's the 4 ward council members. We'll need to set up a meeting probably for early May regarding some recommendations regarding the balance of those dollars. I know there's been some discussion about what projects remain. There's a basketball court at Blue Limestone. There's some other improvements, so we'll be reviewing that with the ward council members, and then they'll be making a recommendation back to city council. And Climate Coalition, I believe, wants to meet
May 14th.
An opportunity to present to city council prior to.
Yeah, they're going to meet us at 6:30. So instead of executive session, they'll be doing a presentation to us. So please still come at 6:30, and then if we need to have an executive session, we'll do it at the end. They just can't get it done during our council meetings, and they've been asking for this meeting for quite a while.
So that's what I had.
That's it? Okay.
And I'll be out of the office, I'm sorry, Friday through Sunday. Okay. Jackie will be acting as city manager. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Nothing.
Mrs. Keller? Nothing. Mr. Browning?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Rohr?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Hellinger?
Nothing.
You'll be a grandpa for the first time.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Mr. Schaefer?
Thanks, break the record, but I do have a couple things.
Good.
But,
Okay.
In regard to the work session, I'll be reaching out to everyone basically, to see, you know, is there consensus that we want to work on a strategic council's own strategic, vision for economic development? If so, a lot of stuff on that list. Where does everyone want to start? So I'll get an email out to everybody later this week, so we'll put an agenda together. And then in parking and safety, last week, we had the largest number of business owners and property owners come in and talk to us about parking. Brought up a lot of good points that I think we need to be considerate of. I'll be meeting with Jackie and the rest of the staff, I think this Wednesday. Yeah, kind of go over that and kind of move forward with our parking plan a little bit with those adjustments. That's all I have.
Okay. So you're going to get this out to everybody soon?
Yeah, when
Everybody has it.
everybody has, it,
Right.
but I'll be sitting around again and I'll be just asking some questions, just trying to get some discussion started so we can put together everything. So Wednesday, we'll be together.
Okay.
Looking at that date for sure.
Yeah, that date
Yeah,
is
that's-
on, Lane showed it on the calendars of tennis, so please hold that date and then we'll finalize that agenda. We'll be on 7.
And we'll still won't have two meetings in May because the next Monday will be Memorial Day weekend.
What time for that?
6 or
Well, I know
is 6 okay with you, Lisa? I think you're the one that struggles with that.
It's okay.
Okay.
Tough.
Would you rather do 6:30?
That would be easier.
Is everybody okay with 6:30? We're flexible. Okay.
So go back just for a second. So obviously there's no meeting on the 28th. That's Memorial Day.
Correct.
So we reschedule for a different day then?
No, the regular meeting's on the 14th, and then the Monday after that will be the work session.
Okay.
Instead of doing the first, I have to be in Florida. My dad's having another surgery, so we're doing the third one
So there's no second regular council meeting in May.
because of the holiday.
A work session.
Sorry. I have been attending the Eyes of Freedom Lima Company Memorial that is coming to Delaware. It'll be here. It's pretty exciting. It's going to be here on May the 29th, which is the Tuesday after Memorial Day. They're going to be bringing in by motorcycles from A.D. Farrell's. So I have some literature up here if anybody wants to see it, but I'm really excited about it. I will be out of town Saturday. I'm on another honor flight, and I'm really excited about this one because I have Don Wirtz as one of my veterans, which I think is awesome, and I have Kenny Davenport, which is Stacy's dad. So it should be really a good day. And with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. We adjourned at 8:27. Thank you. You ready? Good.